Hi there, and welcome to the Crewing Conversation today. Today, we're talking about straight from the source. We're talking to the producers themselves, who we've been talking a lot about this week as the inaugural Aussie Artisan Week, but also throughout the whole pandemic. I think something that we've seen a lot of in the pandemic is that people have started going direct to the creators of their food. We want to know more about where our food comes from, how it was reared, how it was grown, how it was named, and also who the people are who are in charge of that process. Direct online sales from artisans and providores have soared, which is lucky because they've also lost a lot of their other revenue streams, namely on-premise. So with extended state border closures restricting and interrupting the flow of supermarket-bound food and goods, and the increased production and supply restrictions due to the Victorian lockdown at the moment, the importance of local food producers and suppliers is more important than ever, really. So as I mentioned, this week is also the inaugural Aussie Artisan Week, which is created and funded by Pierre. So it's perfect timing to be talking about all things local and producer. And today we have a few of the leaders in their field who also just create plain delicious product. A lot of lactose actually today. First up we have Nick Haddow. So Nick basically has changed the way we eat cheese in this country. He is the man behind Bruny Island Cheese and also the chair of brand Tasmania. His obsession with making cheese started when he was given a bucket of fresh goat's milk while working as a chef in South Australia's Eden Valley. And from that, he made his first cheese. Since then, cheese has taken him around the world, and it's eventually landed him on the stunningly beautiful Bruny Island in southern Tasmania, lucky him, where he started Bruny Island Cheese Company in 2003, which a few people are probably familiar with. He's since extended it to Bruny Island Beer Company, Glenhuon Dairy Company, and has written many books, including Milkmaid, which won a James Beard Foundation Award in 2017. He wears many hats. He's the founder of Mould, a cheese festival, and now the Mould Cheese Collective, where you can get your cheese sent direct to you, and also the chairman of Brand Tasmania, as we mentioned. So his goal is to bring the Tasmanian story to life through brands, including food and wine brands, of course. We also have Pierre, better known probably as Peppy, Issa, and Melissa Altman from Peppy Saya. Pierre and Mel are together because they're a husband and wife team who've turned an experimental churning of 200 litres of cream left over from their dessert business to a thriving handcrafted butter business about 10 years ago. The turning point of their business was in 2012 when Qantas put Peppy Saya on its first class menus, which was quite the honour, but justified. So the butter started going all over the world. Very exciting. So orders from top restaurants and cafes soon followed, and they're a regular fixture for anyone who goes to Carriageworks Farmers Market, and have built a hugely loyal following. And at least one of them is there every single week when it's gone. Over the past 4 months, they've been hugely impacted by the pandemic and have completely transformed their business, which went down 80% more or less overnight. They've had to pivot into direct-to-consumer sales. So we're going to talk to them a lot about how they've done that and the huge success they've had with that. It's great to have a really positive story off the back of an otherwise fairly difficult time. So I'll let Sal start asking the questions of these guys, and away you go, Sal.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. I'll throw to Peppy and Mel first. And as Janine just said, you had that, your business, like many businesses, kind of fell off the proverbial cliff in a matter of weeks when the lockdown sort of took place. What did you do in that first instance to pivot your business, that dreadful pivot word that we're hearing way too much of, but to sort of change the way, to completely adjust your business plan?
Oh, you want me to? Yeah. So I guess, yeah, it all happened quite suddenly for us. We came in that morning, and it was like all the sales, all the customers were cancelling their orders, all the food service customers. So when I say food service, I'm talking about your Snap Fresh, which supply Qantas, Gate Gourmet, your restaurants, cafes. Everybody was we were just getting all these emails saying we need to cancel our orders, and our sales would have dropped already by like that week more than what, 80%,
about 90%.
80%, yeah. So we basically then were like what can we do to bring in sales? Obviously, the retail side had picked up dramatically. Everybody was doing that mad spending, buying bulk butters and
Toilet paper.
Yeah, so then we were like, well, we had the online platform in place already, although it wasn't something we'd heavily pushed in the past. We were doing about probably 10 to 15 orders a week. So we hadn't invested much time or much energy into that side of the business. And for me, I guess it was actually, as Pepe likes to call it, a come to Jesus moment, if I can say that.
Yeah. We're Christian.
Yeah, where we yeah, so we
whatever it takes, Pepe.
Whatever it takes.
So we were like, yeah, so we had this opportunity where we had this platform, and I was super excited because, I mean, I'd always wanted to push the online side of the business, but we just never seemed to be able to get it off the ground. And that's why I'm so impressed by what Nick's done with Bruny Island. Like, I've always admired what he's done with that online platform and going direct to the consumer.
Smoke and mirrors, baby.
Yeah. Well, I was super excited about being able to push this online platform. It was the time. So we basically had to go direct. So we were used to going business B2B, so B2B marketing, and we had to then rejig that and go B2C, business to consumer, which is where we came in collectively as a team, how we were going to do that. We did a lot of, like, we did some EDMs, newsletters, Instagram, and we were offering that message of direct delivery to your door, direct to your door. That was what we were driving home to the consumer.
So we're basically encouraging you to do something faster than you already were going to.
Sorry, what was that?
We encourage you to do something faster that you were already thinking of doing and wanting to do, but it kind of got you there a bit quicker.
It had always been on the back burner, so
Yeah.
we've never been able to put any energy into it because we were so consumed with the wholesale side of the business, which was predominantly what our business was pre-COVID. We were 90% food service orientated and only about 10% retail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not an easy sell. I mean, we're only selling one line of product, which is butter. So, whereas he's diversified with beer, and they've got like the bread side of the business and the cheeses. Whereas we're just going in with one SKU, one line, one product line, which is butter. So it's a hard task in to market that product. Yeah.
Mel, can I ask you, how quickly did you see a little bit of a turnaround with the consumer sales?
Well, we were, during that period of lockdown, it was leading into the Easter long weekend. So there, obviously, people were sort of stuck indoors. They weren't able to go anywhere. And for us, Easter normally is quite a busy time of year for us because the hot cross buns go hand in hand with butter. So our sales, it's probably one of the 2 times of the year, our busiest periods of the year, which is Easter and then Christmas. So we marketed this is where we came in with Myrna, where we marketed a breakfast box for the Easter long weekend because people couldn't go out to cafes or anything. So we put together a few of our products like Myrna's crumpets and our butter with the lemon curd and creme fraiche, and we marketed the breakfast boxes. So as I mentioned earlier, we were doing pre-COVID, we were doing about 10 to 15 online orders a week. Overnight or over that week leading up to Easter, we received over 1,300 online orders. So it was a big game changer for us because obviously, I don't know whether we weren't expecting that. I guess we weren't because we weren't geared up for that. We weren't prepared at all. But amazingly enough, the whole team, we all pulled together to get the job done, and we worked all Easter weekend to get the products out to our customers. We'd experienced some issues with shipping, and which I'm sure Nick can tell us all about. And products missing, you'd get the emails of people saying, "Oh, we were really looking forward to this Easter long weekend, and it wasn't in our box." And so we were having our staff drive, where they had to go to drop off whatever was missing from their online order, making sure the customer was happy. And so whether we made money that weekend, I can't say, but the end result was we kept production going, and we kept our staff employed and earning an income, and we kept the business, it was kept moving over that period.
Nick, I might come to you on this one because you obviously had a similar situation in a different in a different setup, but you've obviously in recent years set up the Glen Huon dairy farm, where it's basically a closed loop farm where you have the cows, you produce your own milk, you make cheese, and that's part of a very long held dream you've had. Obviously, one of the challenges of having realised that dream is that you've actually got more cheese than you had before. You can't just stop milking cows, they won't stop having calves. So how did you go about, given you'd lost your outlets, how did you go about trying to move and sell your cheese?
There was no silver bullet, and that's probably the first thing that I realised was almost overnight. My loss wasn't as great or as immediate as Melissa and Pierre's, but it was nonetheless significant and terrifying. And as Melissa said, we're a much more diverse business. We make a lot of different products. There's always been an enormous amount of complexity in the business that I run, which up until about 4 months ago, I'd always kind of slightly felt uncomfortable about how complex it was. Some people just call it an inability to be able to focus on one thing. But that complexity has actually served us quite well because, we could activate some parts of our business whilst we, shelved other parts. The most vulnerable part of my business immediately was our brewery. So we make about 100,000 litres of beer a year. About 65,000 litres of that is consumed by ourselves through our cellar door, through events, through our online sales, but mostly through our cellar door events. Cellar door had shut down. Mass gatherings and events had shut down overnight. So we'd lost at least 65%. And of course, the other 35% goes to bars and restaurants. They'd gone as well. So the brewery felt bloody vulnerable there for a few weeks. And in terms of the farm, you're right, nothing stops a cow from milking. Having kind of gone through a year or so ago, running a dairy farm in the middle of a bushfire, I can attest to the fact that nothing stops a cow from milking every day. So the nice thing about what we make as opposed to what Pepe Saya makes is that we can put our product on a shelf and come back to it in 6 or 12 months' time if we needed to. So we've got a few different levers that we can pull from a cheese production point of view, and we shifted most of our attention towards hard cheese and away from soft cheese, which has a much smaller, much shorter shelf life and something that we need to turn over within sort of 4 to 6 weeks of it being made. Whereas some of our hard cheeses, they can buy us a fair bit of time. And that seemed to be the appropriate move, and that's paid out pretty well for us.
Fantastic. And we've chosen to speak to you guys today, both the team Pepe Saya and to Nick of Brianna, because you're both sort of at the forefront of what artisans are doing in the food space in Australia. And I want to throw to you, Pepe, what do you think in the first instance defines what an artisan is, and why are they so important to our food culture now more than ever before?
Well, I guess to me what an artisan is 100% transparency. So it's about you make an honest product and you're very transparent about how you make it. You break bread with people, they ask you questions, you answer those questions, you show how things are made. And I think that sort of thing, I mean, it's so important to the ecology of our food system, because this is where you can buy the pure food from. So, I mean, I don't think supermarkets really contribute much more than just having stuff available for people to a convenience point of view. I mean, personally, if you want to eat real food, you visit your high street, visit your farmer's market, you know, like take something as simple as vegetables or an apple. You go to a farmer's market, you're getting an apple pretty much picked off the tree yesterday, and you go to a supermarket, can't even tell me where it's from or how long it's been in the freezer for or fridge. And so it's really, those things are very important. As well, in saying that, like take things as simple as bread and butter. I mean, bread from, you know, an artisan baker, there's nothing in there. It's just water and flour. Where, you know, you pick up some bread in a supermarket and it's got 1,000 numbers on it, and you know the list of ingredients is over 50 to 60 ingredients in a loaf of bread, and then they're telling you on the front it's full of fiber and it's great for you. I don't get that, you know. So the artisan movement that exists, it does exist, but it's almost being hoarded, if I can use that word, in the sense that, you know, you do go into the supermarket and you pick up a cheese and it's an artisan cheese that's mass produced. And so we do have a lot of work to do from an artisan community to reclaim that word back and give it the meaning it really should have, you know, or the, not necessarily the prestige, but the like to give it substance, like real substance. So when you do say artisan, people know what you're talking about. So I think in that sense, but I mean, we're very lucky. If you go to a Parisian market, you're not going to see many artisans at a Parisian market in France. You're not going to see that in Paris. But if you come to any market in Australia, like nearly 90% of the markets in Australia actually have farmers and artisans in them that are selling their products, whether it's in Victoria, Canberra, or Sydney or Brisbane even.
Do you think there's a power in the artisans kind of working together, like what you're doing with this Aussie Artisan Week, to try and sort of raise the awareness, but have people working together to kind of promote each other? Do you think there's sort of strength in numbers? Is that one of the reasons behind Aussie Artisan Week? Yeah,
I think that, like, to achieve something like what we've achieved over this coming into this week and now this week where people are talking about it. I think it's about, you know, just we've got to understand that it's everyone has to be included. As much as an expense it might be for one group, like we're, say, paying to get this movement going, but then it's a very small price to pay for what can happen if everyone comes on board, and then it goes somewhere from there, say next year or the year after.
Because well, a question for all of you really, but what do you think the barriers have been? I mean, obviously doing a campaign around artisans and what are artisans and why you should buy from them. I mean, it all sounds really obvious, I guess, to people like us who love the produce and know the story and all of that. But what are the essential barriers, do you think, that need changing? And possibly some of those have been changed over this pandemic period where you're going direct to consumer. But is it education? Is it knowledge? Is it cost? What's been the barrier to people going artisan?
I think it might also be it might be a bit of infrastructure deficit in there.
Yeah.
Why doesn't this problem exist in places like Italy or Spain or even the US? And a lot of that's got to do with the fact that they have systems in place that recognize quality, you know, appellation systems in France, or PDO systems in Italy and Spain. Now, they're limited in their application in Australia. They're limited in their application largely on the basis that we don't have multiple centuries where we've created products. If I was a cheesemaker in France, for example, the cheese that I make would largely be dictated by the place that I called home.
Yeah.
And I couldn't necessarily make a cheese that had a GI, a geographical indicator, such as, I don't know, Roquefort, for example, anywhere outside of a very small area. So as an artisan in Australia, I quite like that freedom, that lack of tradition, that flexibility, that liberty to be able to create and be creative and be innovative. However, what often we let go of in that conversation is a recognition of the quality. And Pepe's absolutely right in that a lack of understanding or a lack of definition around the word artisan. And the problem is often we're having these conversations with the wrong people. We're having these conversations with the people that are already buying our stuff, not the people who are shopping in supermarkets who pick something up and see that it's artisan and that's good enough for them. It's a bit like sustainable agriculture, whatever the hell that is. You know, there needs to be some actual definition around some of this terminology.
I think for us, it has been quite difficult. It is a big education process. I think Janine nailed it there. Like for us, it's been educating people about our product, particularly because it's a completely different beast to your supermarket grade butters. So obviously, I mean, we're using fresh cream. The cream changes with the season, so it's not a homogenized product. Flavors change throughout the course of the seasons and the year, like a big year. And it's been a big hurdle for us in educating people that, you know, with these products and how we make them, that there are variances, it's not standardized. So I think that's probably one of the key factors.
Yeah, like if you asked, say, a European that grew up and what is cultured butter or what does it smell or taste like, they'd go, oh, it's stinky, it's pungent, it tastes almost like cheese. If you said to an Australian, oh, what does cultured butter taste like? They go, oh, butter, cream, milk, salt, water. So it is very cultural in a sense, that not having that history, like Nick said, he's nailed it. But also Nick touched on something really important there, that the people we predominantly speak to and educate about our product in our business are 90% chefs. So like, and that's why I guess this movement that we're trying to do now, like that Aussie Artisan Week, has legs because we lost our market. So every artisan producer out there that is predominantly selling the product they make, that high quality product, to chefs and to the hospitality industry, lost their market overnight. And whatever places are still going are only running at 30% or 40%. So it's really important now. They're stopping and they're going, you know, like the vegetable guys are going, oh, well, who am I going to sell this high-end product to? And you're going out to the public and most people will say, oh, well, aren't carrots carrots? You know, oh, well, there's different varieties of carrots. These are beautiful. You know, you just need to blanch them and they're perfect. A bit of butter, they've got so much flavor. Oh, well, you've got to be able to be in that space to get it as well, right?
And also the cost too, right?
It is the consumers that's going to change this thing. You know, a lot of people say to me, oh, why aren't we making more raw milk cheese? Why aren't more cheesemakers making raw milk cheese in Australia? Well, the reality is there's about 12 of us. There's a lot more consumers than there are cheesemakers in Australia. The reason that we eat free-range eggs, the reason Coles and Woolworths sells free-range eggs is not because they thought it was a good idea or because they got behind animal welfare. It's because their consumers demanded it of them.
Right. So but Nick's right. The supermarkets and shoppers in general, or, you know, even the high street shops, they're getting their information from distributors. Distributors and supermarkets have got that Tesco model going on where data rules everything. So you can't, I mean, that's what stifles culture as well. Data itself, even though it moves us forward with, you know, this Zoom meeting, but also it stifles culture from stopping it from, you know, being almost, you know. So you can't just rely on data.
Yeah.
Nick, I want to throw to you for a minute and talk about where you are in Tasmania and the particular reality of that. Obviously, you, as Janine said, wear several hats, and one of them is as chair of Brand Tasmania. Can you tell us a little bit about what Brand Tasmania is actually about and the work you do for them, and how you've been potentially working with other Tasmanian food businesses, but other businesses as well, to kind of work your way through the current scenario that we're facing, and you in particular in Tasmania are facing?
Yeah, sure. Brand Tasmania, in one form, Brand Tasmania has been going for about 8 years, but about 18 months ago, it was made a statutory authority. So it's become the first statutory authority place branding organisation in Australia. It's actually only the second one in the world after Iceland. So that came about because our previous Premier, Will Hodgman, really valued the notion that the thing that makes us the most competitive, or our strongest competitive advantage, and therefore also our strongest economic advantage, was actually the brand, the Tasmanian brand. You know, we are different in Tasmania from the rest of Australia, and we are certainly different from the rest of the world. And that feels more true right now than probably ever before in our history. So being able to define that difference and articulate it and put that brand lens in front of not just our private sector thinking, but also, more importantly, our government policy making, so that we can all collectively as a community make decisions through that lens on the basis of what is best for Tasmania, what is the version of Tasmania that we would like to be, not just now, but into our generational future, so that we can make sure that we maintain that difference and potentially even grow that difference. So that's a very interesting notion as to, okay, so what does a place branding organisation like Brand Tasmania do at a time of an international pandemic? Certainly not the work that we thought we'd be doing in 2020. But that said, it's probably more relevant right now to be able to define and articulate that difference, because we are going to come out of this, and we've been working pretty hard in the last few months, not just we've been working pretty closely with the government around what that might look like for our brand to be the place in Australia, and one of the few places in the world where, we're electing to stay closed so that we can maintain a level of normal life, for want of a better term. And the Premier has announced just this morning that Tasmania is electing to stay closed for a further few months, with moving that date further back to December now. We're going to stay closed. So it's a pretty interesting time to understand what makes Tasmania Tasmania. And the last few months, it's been a really beautiful place to be. It's in many ways we've got Tasmania back. We can. There's so many people out, seeing their own backyards at the moment. It's really encouraging, and we've been doing a lot of work with Tourism Tasmania, which is the destination marketing arm of the government, which is now looking inward as opposed to outward, encouraging Tasmanians to explore their own backyard like so many other places are. But it's I think we'll look back on this time, and it will be a really important time that's defined our culture in many ways in Tasmania. It's been enjoyable in a sadistic sort of a way.
We're all looking forward to getting back there when we can.
Yeah.
Just on that, the closed borders thing, it's a question, Rita, I'd like to throw to both or to all of you. With the border closures that we've got, and with, production limitations in some places, particularly in Victoria at the moment, should we be concerned about food shortages and an insecure supply chain of food items, do you think? And is that a reason above all else to sort of buy small and buy local?
Yeah, I don't think from a supply point of view, we need to be particularly concerned right now. We're a net exporter of food in Australia. But from a food security point of view, when you're thinking about it in terms of provenance and known quality and food safety, absolutely we should be looking inwards. The standards of food production, the standard of agriculture in Australia is rarely beaten around the world. And so from a safe food point of view, and suddenly food safety is very much on the radar, way more than it ever has been. I think buying small and buying local really supports that. Says the small local cheesemaker.
Pepe, Mel?
I think that, yeah, Nick's right. There's an abundance of food available in Australia at the moment. If anything, the people, rearing animals and planting food. I mean, if people stop, like we had farmers markets that were cancelled, and a lot of shops that shut and so on, and there was an abundance of food being thrown out. So we do produce a lot of food, and I don't think people need to worry about food being available. Where their food comes from and what they buy is more what they should be focusing on at the moment, because prices have come down on raw ingredients for now, and I think that people could take advantage of that, definitely. No.
What was that, Mel?
The price of cream hasn't come down.
Right.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's right. The price of producing cream hasn't come down much either.
Precisely.
I have one more question for you, just a quick one, and just before we throw to Janine, who'll ask you all a final question. But I just wanted to talk about collaboration, and both your businesses are very good at collaborating with other people. Nick, in your sense, you've in your quite sophisticated e-commerce setup with Bruny Island Cheese, you often promote other Tasmanian products and sell those. Obviously Pepe Sayers, particularly in the last few months, has, you mentioned your crumpet, your breakfast pack, but you've been working with a small goods maker to do your Nduja butter and other you're creating other products. How important is it to really, or how beneficial to have those collaborations in businesses like yours?
Like for us?
Yeah, go Mel.
Oh, so, yeah, I think it's absolutely important. Like, it's detrimental, particularly to the online side of the business. You've got to keep people interested and intrigued. And I mean, we've developed some pretty cool products during COVID. One of my favourite is the Chantilly mascarpone. And then the other one is the maple butter, which is just created out of pure indulgence and fun, basically. I mean, we probably don't make any money on those products. But yeah, like,
who the hell is talking about profit at this time?
No one's talking about.
It's all just cash flow, right?
Yes,
but with the collaborations, I mean, our business was founded on a collaboration, and that collaboration was when we wanted to make butter, we couldn't get cream that we could actually turn into butter, so we had to source a local guy called John Fairley, Country Valley, and beg him for his cream. That's basically what happened there. And then while we were at his farm, time and time again getting his cream, we saw that the cows were licking the salt blocks from Olsen's, and that's how that whole came about. And then it was like, well, no, we need to tell people about this. This is his product, not ours, that we're just making it into butter. And then we use Olsen's salt to give it that beautiful flavor. And that was the beginning of all our collaborations. And since then, there's been probably, like Nick, thousands of collaborations that have happened with us and our business. And when people approach us now, even for more and more of those, and we're all for it. We think it's great. It's a way of producers working together. So it's great.
Yeah, and very similar story, Sally, in that it's not a strategic decision to collaborate with other people. It's a decision that is born out of a love of the place that I live and the produce and the people that come from it. And I'm very lucky in my life I get to meet a whole bunch of incredible producers, like just amazing people. And it feels very normal and natural for me to want to be able to share and tell that story and share their produce with our customers. And so through our, like you say, our highly sophisticated e-commerce platform, we're able to sort of use that as a launch pad for a lot of other products. And I've been very proud to be able to help other small artisan producers in Tasmania to be able to find their feet and to grow their business. And it's a great place to do it from. Not only is the produce in Tassie awesome, but I mean, Tasmania is the ultimate artisan economy. 97% of the businesses in Tasmania are small or micro businesses. That just doesn't occur anywhere else in the world. So rich pickings in terms of artisan produce done.
Fantastic.
Amazing. And guys, just a last question from me, something we've been asking everyone on this webinar series. Obviously the pandemic has given everyone a lot of cause to pause and take stock and rethink. And usually that's in this industry, while being extremely busy and maybe even busier than ever. But what are the things that you may have been reticent to voice before that you'd like to have seen change about the industry you're in? or the things that may have changed because of the pandemic that could be a positive?
I'll have a crack.
Have a crack.
One of the great things, not that it's been something that I've particularly driven, but a response to this last few months that's been very, very positive is the natural movement, whether it's been forced upon them or they've just been encouraged by it, for particularly chefs to move back to local produce. And I know that, I reckon it's probably the same with Butter Guys, that there's still plenty of chefs that, yeah, we really want to support local produce. But when it comes to it, you still see loads of imported cheese on people's menus. Whereas they'll be at pains to sort of tell you how much they're supporting the local produce. And very few restaurants and chefs actually, walk the walk that they talk. So possibly because of supply issues, or just possibly because it felt the right thing to do at the time, we've had a dramatic uptick in the support from restaurants around Australia, particularly for locally produced cheese. So that's been amazing.
Great. That is amazing.
It's been something that I've been calling for years and years and years, that, we have this default mechanism that if a cheese is made in France or Italy, it is therefore superior. And, once we start to unpack that logic, it's left wanting.
Well, and we know that it's just about changing a habit a lot of the time, isn't it? And now if the habit's changed, then the purchasing may have changed for good, which is brilliant.
Yeah, and look, I'm very much of probably the optimistic end of the spectrum, and there will definitely be some positives that come out of this time.
Good.
I think we've always had a little KPI joke going around our offices that when you jump on a first-class flight out of Australia on an Australian airline, they're going to serve you Australian bubbly or sparkling. When that happens, we know as artisans and producers, Australian produce, we've nailed it. We're done. Because that's the marker. When we can throw out the champagne and replace it with Australian bubbly. And we do produce some amazing bubblies. Like I think Arras is one of the best that I've ever had in Australia. It's absolutely wonderful. So, but if you talk to them about, what's your hurdle to market, they'll tell you, people think that because it's French, it's better. I mean, not that I'm bad mouthing French, but I'm saying like there's an opportunity there for us to really embrace the products we make in Australia. But the key, and like, I feel like this whole Aussie Artisan Week is not really directed so much at the public. I feel it's directed at the gatekeepers that say to you, it's too expensive, no one's going to buy it. Well, how do you know? You won't even put it on your shelf. Or, no, we're not going to serve that because we're serving this imported one. Or when I go to a restaurant and they're an Australian chef in an Australian setting and they're serving me Italian water, sparkling water. Are you joking? Like, now I'm getting on my soapbox.
We should have done this earlier.
Like, are you joking? Are you
everyone comfortable?
Are you okay? Like,
let it rip, Peppy.
I'm staring at the harbour bridge. You're serving me a complimentary glass of champagne, and then here comes the Italian water to go with my French butter. I mean, wow. We really need to take a hard look at ourselves when that happens. Now, 10 years ago when we started, our biggest hurdle was, we're not going to serve your butter because we serve an imported butter and we have to give our diners the ultimate experience. And Nick's nailed it. The ultimate experience is eating amazing produce from Tasmania, from South Australia, from Victoria, from New South Wales, from Queensland. I mean, we need to celebrate. And when people come to our shores, we need to show off our products and not, you know, there's some funny stories I could tell you about that. You know, you're with a tourism body and they're showing off the Australia to the world, and they're serving a French champagne. Like, I mean, wow, you know, I've been in some pretty interesting situations. Am I the only one that's strange? But
No.
I know you don't. But you know, there's just this
Disconnect.
yeah, it's
a
and that's happening in our delis, in our supermarkets, in our restaurants, and this, I mean, Aussie Artisan Week it's really about that. It's really about making that connection and going, hey, there's people here that, you know, you've got this produce right here. And if I can just go on a bit more with my soapbox, I did a tour of, in 2017, I went to France and I did this tour, and we're at La Bon Marché, and I went there to see their butter wall. They have every butter made in the country. And there was a lady stocking the shelves and she spoke English, and I said to her, oh, do you have any imported butters? I was just curious. She nearly bit my head off. You are in France, you eat French butter. You know, like they've got their philosophy right. We're lacking that. We have that. We walk around thinking about that we're more of internationals rather than being Australian. I don't want to go the whole patriotic thing, but you know, it is something that
I think that's allowed.
More power to your Peppy.
Right.
That was my rant.
Very good.
We loved
Very
it.
relevant
Thank you.
rant.
Thanks. A good point to end on, and I think it's food for thought. More of that, and thank you all for being part of our conversation.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
guys.
having us.
To pick up again and continue the conversation.
No worries.
Love
Thank
that.
you.
The Aussie cheese and butter.
See you later,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
guys. Bye.